All right, well, let's solve a couple of equations here. We've got, looks like an expression on either side that involves distributive property. Probably the easiest thing to do here would be to open up both pairs of parentheses using distributive property. So let's see, 3 times x is 3x, 3 times negative 6 is negative 18, 4 times x is 4x, and 4 times 4 is 16. Now, my goal ultimately is to get x all by itself, which means I have to get the x term all by itself. And to do that, I have to have only one x term, but currently I have two. They're on different sides of the equal sign, so I'm going to take 3x from each side. So I'm going to take this one, just take it away. And of course, I have to do the same on both sides. So that's going to leave me with negative 18 over here. And 4x take away 3x is just a single x. I still have my plus 16. Remember, this negative goes with the 18, so if you take the 3x away, you still have the negative there in front of the 18. Let's see, next I need the x all by itself, and so I'm going to subtract 16 from each side. Negative 18 minus 16 is negative 34 equals x. Now, oftentimes at this point, we would have to divide by the coefficient of x, because we have the x term by itself, but in this case, the coefficient of x is just a 1. We don't write it in, but it is just a 1. And therefore, there's no point in dividing by the coefficient of x. We're done. X equals negative 4. Let's try another one. Here we have, let's see, well, same deal. I'm opening up my parentheses. Negative 3 times 5x is negative 15x. Negative 3 times negative 3 is a positive 9. Let's see, 2 times x is 2x, and 2 times 7 is 14. Let's see. What I want to do is, I usually like to get rid of the smaller of the two x terms, and this one technically is smaller, so I'm going to add 15x to each side. That's going to leave me with 9 over here. 2x and 15x is 17x. I still have my 14 over here. And then I'm going to take 14 from each side, and the goal there is to get the x term by itself. I don't want this 14 hanging out with it, so I'm going to subtract it. 9 minus 14 is negative 5. And the last thing is, I have 17x, so I need to divide both sides by 17. And over here, well, if I divide negative 5 by 17, and it's not going to come out to be a whole number, the easiest thing to do is just to represent that as a fraction. Don't turn it into a decimal. That's just doing extra work, which you're going to have to round off anyway. Just leave it as a fraction. One thing to point out about here, notice when you're doing distributive property, if there's a negative outside and a negative inside, they multiply together to make a positive. So we can think of this as a negative 3 inside the parentheses. Sometimes it helps to think of it that way. And that is solving equations with variables on both sides and using parentheses.